Afternoon, Year 10s. The two clips I've just put together are part one is looking at coastal management in Widemouth Bay, referring to the book and doing some book work. And the second one is really going into the field, part two, and looking at the structures that go on. So keeping you up, mate. Hard approach and soft approach. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to look at coastal management. Okay, it's a big part of the topic. We've done the sort of the physical bit. Now it's the human impact bit, really. It's quite straightforward. I think the argument's quite clear. We're going to look at page 106 through to about 111, okay? But as I said last time, what we're going to do is go out in the field again and talk about different structures at Widemouth Bay. Come around here, Jack, let's have a look, and you can see what I'm doing, okay? So, coastal management, what is it? Well, it's basically protecting the coast from erosion. Okay. There's different ways of doing that, but also rather than just protecting the coast, we've got future sea level rise, haven't we? And that's a huge deal. And so we've got to combat that in a way that's sustainable. Well, what does sustainable mean? It means that it can operate without damaging the environment. And it's all about cost. So we've got cost versus the environment, which is key to all this argument, and it always will be. Is the land worth protecting? Let's spend some money on it and protect it. If not, we can think of other ways. And that's the whole thing, what it's all held on, okay? So that's coastal management. Management's like caring for the coastline, because it's a valuable resource. A lot of people live there for lots of reasons. You've got cities right by it, so it needs protecting. And you've got like industry and infrastructure right by it as well. And it's millions and millions of pounds are spent every year in different places. And if they get it wrong, my goodness, it makes a right mess. Okay, but we need to focus really on Widemouth Bay. So that's that, okay? So there's two different types, okay? We have the hard approach, okay? The hard approach, and we have the soft approach, okay? The hard approach is like it's like a strategy. It's linked also with this actually is managed retreat as well. I think they're sort of like as soft as well, really. It's under the banner. Sometimes they separate them, but they're the two main ones, okay? Hard versus soft, and that's often the argument. So what's the hard approach? It's like artificial structures. If you look at page 106, 107, it beautifully describes it, and it evaluates really the good and the bad. What's the advantages, what the disadvantages of each scheme. So the hard approach, it's called the hard approach because it's hard structures. The idea is it holds the line, stops erosion, or controls it, but it does stop it a lot of times, but it does break down, things do break, like sea walls and so on. It's often very expensive, and it's often very ugly. Okay, so what are they? We've got, so the first one, we've got groins, and they are like structures that go out parallel to the coast, and they break waves, and they slow down longshore drift, a coastal transportation process, the zigzag movement. So a groin is one example. You've got rock armour blocks, sometimes they're called. We're going to go to Widemouth and look at them in a minute. Okay. You've got gabions. Gabions are like rocks in cages, and they sort of flex a bit more, but they look pretty ugly. There's some down at Summerlease, and they're like walls of rocks in cages, and they flex, and they do hold the line, but they do eventually come apart. They last about 10 years, some of them, depends. There's other ones as well. You've got offshore breakwaters, like reefs, and they work sometimes, and surfers can ride them. They had an idea at Bournemouth, you want to research that, Bournemouth Pier, Bournemouth Offshore Reef, didn't work. It cost loads of money, supposed to bring in loads of tourism as well, didn't work. But that's worth having a look at, so investigate that in Bournemouth. Have a look on the internet and read about that one. There's one in India, which is really interesting. It's like a 3-minute clip. It's quite a cool little clip, and it worked and brings in tourists to the area, and the waves break. So you imagine the beach is there. They put a more shallow bit of sort of structure here, sort of held down by sandbags or concrete and so on. It's very expensive, and the waves come in, they hit that, they break, and then they rumble through, and so this bit of coastline is protected. Because once it's broke, the energy has been sort of dissipated. But if they break in a nice way, like a surfing wave, you can have tourism going on all along here. So like surf tourism. And in India, they did that. They've done it in Australia as well. Offshore reefs, that's one. Also, you've got revetment. They're like fences that stick out in the sea, different ones. There's concrete ones and there's wooden ones. Wooden looks nicer in the environment, not so effective often. There's loads up in Holderness, revetments. What other ones are there? We've got riprap, which is a bit like rock armour. And they're like more like cemented pieces that join together. Rock armour is like lumps of rock, basically, like you get at Widemouth. So that's the hard approach. Costs loads of money. Generally, the value of the land has to be expensive. So with the hard approach, okay, it's the value of the land. Value of the land is high. Let's build some hard structures, okay? Okay, however, you've got soft approach as well. Let's use brown, okay? Working with nature more. It's more managed retreat, letting the sea come in. So you're letting the land is retreating and letting the water come in and use its natural processes, its natural systems, which is better in the long run for this whole idea of managing sea level and sustainability. It's also cheaper, okay? So it's cheaper. Looks nicer in the environment. It's environmentally friendly. Different schemes. If you look at page 108, 109, it talks about it. There's working with dunes, with Christmas trees and managing and holding dunes in place. Have a look. They evaluate why it's good and why it's bad. There's reprofiling, which is a new thing really in the last few years, and that's giant sandcastles on a large scale. Carry lumps of sediment and shingle and placing it so it acts as a natural sea defence. Naturally, I guess, but it's been artificially put there. Got to get it right, because the size of material if it's the wrong size of material, it can cause scouring and erode other parts of the cliff further away. Happened in Adelaide. I had a nightmare with it in Adelaide, and it caused much more erosion further down the coast. But reprofiling is going on. Beach nourishment, where you add sand, that's what it's called. You're nourishing the beach with more sand. That's going on in Sussex. Pevensey Bay it's called, in a place called Eastbourne. That's very effective. Dunes, they put fences up, Christmas trees, I'll talk about that with you. And then you've got managed retreat, which is the big one, where basically you just take away the sea wall. It's a soft approach, and the water all floods in behind, and it creates its own sort of shingle banks, shingle ridges, wetlands, which are very good for birds and nature. There's a good case study of Medmerry in West Sussex in the book, but there's other ones that I'll talk about when we get back to school. A place called Cannock Sands on the Lizard, which has worked really well by just taking away the wall and letting nature take its course, and flood in behind creates its own equilibrium. And if we've got rising sea levels, then that's got to be the best solution in the long run. Often though, the land value is low. And Porlock Weir, if you Google that and look that up on BBC Bite Size on YouTube, they've got a nice little case study on Porlock Weir up in the southwest of England, and the water has sort of gone in behind, and it's an example of managed retreat. But it's better for future sea level rise. It's sustainable, and it's cheaper. Okay, so those are the factors you've got to think about when you're doing coastal management. So often that's the argument, and often they ask you in exams to evaluate whether coastal management is worth doing or not, and it's often to do with the cost of the land and to do with the environment as well. Hard versus the soft, and that's the argument really. Okay, so we're going to go into the field, have a look at these different things. We're going to look at rock armour. We can have a look at dunes, dunes we can look at. Sea walls, which is the classic, which I haven't put on there actually. And you've got them at Crooklets, and Black Rock's a really good one. And they sometimes do a bit of both. So you have your sea wall, and there's the sea break in, and they have a little lump of armour blocks here. Then they have a car park here. and that's often at Widemouth. That's imagine it side on. That's going on at Widemouth and at Black Rock. But they don't look very so nice, but they're very expensive. Okay, right. Okay, so that bit of work we've just done, all this work up to page 111. I want you to look at your notes, and I'll set you some questions probably on show my homework, exam questions about it. So once you've evaluated the different hard versus soft, okay. And in the next clip, we'll go down onto Widemouth Beach and have a look at it all because I can't fit it all on the phone, can we, Jacker? All right. Okay.